Welcome back, everyone. It's another day in court for Drew Peterson, and witnesses continue to talk about how Kathleen Savio lived her last days in fear for her life.
Defense attorney Conti joins us with the latest in the case, and let's first start with testimony. Good morning to you, by the way. Welcome. Let's start with the testimony by the woman who rented from Savio's basement, rented a room there,
right.
Kristen Anderson. What do you make of all this testimony, and how in the world will there ever be an impartial jury now that all this stuff's come out?
Well, her testimony was essentially the same as all these other people who are saying that these women were living in fear of their lives, that Drew Peterson told them, I will kill you and I will make it look like an accident, and he was threatening them with knives and guns, leaving bullets in driveways. I mean, this is all very consistent for the prosecution to show that he made these witnesses unavailable, and therefore the hearsay testimony is going to come in at the ultimate trial. I think, Jan, that's a good question. How are we going to have a fair trial? Let's just say the judge determines that none of this evidence comes in, but now we've all heard it, and the potential jurors have all heard it. And how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube? I just don't know if you can.
You know, one of the things that came out in that testimony yesterday is that this renter said that Savio kept a briefcase of police reports and other documents to provide a paper trail in case Peterson eventually did kill her. I haven't heard anything of whether they have that evidence or not, but if that does exist, wouldn't that be a powerful case against, and would that be admissible?
Sure it would. I'm sure it's somewhere. I mean, I'm sure what these are the orders of protection. There were 18 police calls. There was also all of the wills and the divorce paperwork. I assume that all of that is somewhere circulating out there in evidence, and it'll be brought in.
Let's talk about this hearsay evidence, because it's kind of like a catch-22. On one hand, you've got to prove that he silenced a witness by offing them or whatnot, killing them, in order to make them not testify as a witness. But on the same token, you've got to prove first that he killed this person or that he somehow silenced them.
Right.
With the hearsay testimony.
You're right. It is the catch-22. But one thing has to come first, and the judge is hearing all of this evidence now to make that determination. It seems a little bit unfair to Drew Peterson, if we care about Drew Peterson, that the rules have changed. The 100 years or 200 years of rules have changed because we're punishing people who off witnesses, which sort of makes sense. You don't want to, reward somebody for offing a witness who's going to be the person who accuses you and stands on the witness stand doing that. But that's what the law is. It's been upheld in higher courts. It's probably going to go all the way up to the Supreme Court after this case is over. But it's a very unusual procedure.
Well, yeah, because then you have to prove first that, in fact, you caused that witness.
Right. And once the judge makes that determination, preponderance of the evidence is more probably true than not true, then it goes to the jury, who's going to decide that very question, but by a reasonable doubt.
Now, you've been following this case closely for us. If this evidence is not allowed into the court case, what does that do to the prosecution's case? Can they still get a conviction?
I think they can, but it's going to be difficult, very difficult, because there were no eyewitnesses. There is no physical testimony, physical evidence, and jurors these days want to see that. However, the prosecution can make a good point that this was never treated like a crime scene. It was treated like an accident scene. Therefore, there were no fingerprints taken. It wasn't like they took all of this evidence and didn't find anything against him. That wasn't the case. They just didn't do it.
That explains why the case has got holes in it. That doesn't point a direct finger at the defendant.
No, there is motive aplenty here. I mean, they were in a divorce. They were a volatile couple. He had all the motive in the world to get his kids from her, to get the money from her. There's good motive, but there's really no good hard physical evidence.
All it takes is reasonable doubt.
That's correct.
All right, Conti.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.